Hey guys, Brad with Family Handyman. I'm working on building an iconic Danish modern chair. I'm going to build a prototype first so that I can make sure that all my angles and sizes are correct. And then I'm going to transfer that stuff to a sheet of MDF, draw all the parts out, and I'll also use those part shapes for router patterns later. So let's get started. Start by printing out full-size patterns and then cut them out of 1/2-inch MDF using a jigsaw or bandsaw, staying just outside of the line. Carefully sand the patterns, taking all the time you need to get them perfect, because your pattern bit is going to follow them exactly. If you don't have a router or router table, don't worry. You have other options, which I'll talk about throughout the process. Trace the patterns onto your lumber and then cut them out, staying no more than 1/8 inch outside the line. That leaves very little to route off, making that process much easier. If you're not going to use a router with a pattern bit, you'll still make the patterns, trace them onto your lumber, and rough cut them using a bandsaw or jigsaw. Tack the patterns to your rough cut parts with 1-inch brad nails. Using a pattern bit in your router or router table, trim off the excess. Pry off the pattern, attach it to the next rough cut piece, and continue. If you're not using a router, sand your parts to the line instead. For this, you can use a belt sander, edge sander, spindle sander, or all of the above. For tight radii, you'll need to use a rasp or sandpaper wrapped around a dowel if you don't have a spindle sander. Test the fit where the front legs and back supports meet the joint areas on the back legs. Those joint areas, they should be perfect. If you do need to make any adjustments, touch up the pieces with a sanding block, disc sander, or edge sander. All right, so we've got all our parts cut and routed, so the next thing we're going to do is join them with dowel joints here and here. And we'll use a doweling jig to create those joints and drill them using a special brad point drill bit with a stop collar. Dry fit the dowel joints to make sure everything lines up properly. Be sure you're using dowels made for joinery, not smooth dowel stock from the hardware store. Joinery dowels are fluted, allowing glue to escape the dowel hole as the joint is pressed together. Once you're satisfied, apply glue to the dowels and joint surfaces, insert the dowels, and press the joints together. Use pipe clamps to coax them fully home. Stop blocks clamped to the parts keep the pipe clamps from sliding. Glue only one joint at a time, so you're never in a hurry. Once the glue is dry, using a 3/8 inch roundover bit, radius all the sharp edges. If you don't have a router, you can accomplish this easily with hand tools. A rasp, belt sander, orbital sander, hand planes, spoke shaves, or any combination of these tools is fair game. Avoid the armrest joints at this point. Create 5/32 by 1/2-inch grooves down the center of each of the seat frame parts. The best way is to make 2 passes using a 1/8 inch bit and a compact router with an edge guide. That way you can make stopped grooves in the side frames. Otherwise, you can make these grooves on the table saw and fill the resulting gap afterward. Using your dowel jig, drill dowel holes in all the seat frame parts. Test the fit, then add the glue and dowels. When the glue is dry, bevel the back edge at about 15 degrees, depending on your chair. Cut the seat back spindles to their finished shape, staying just outside the line. Then sand them to the line and round over the edges with a 1/4 inch roundover bit, sanding block, or block plane. Cut the back and front stretchers, shaping the front stretcher as shown on the pattern. Round over only the bottom edge of the front stretcher and bevel its top edge at 15 degrees. After rounding over the back stretchers, drill 7 evenly spaced 1/4 inch dowel holes in one edge of each one, centered on its thickness. Use dowel centers and a 1/4 inch spacer to locate the dowel holes in the spindles. Then drill 1/4 inch dowel holes in the ends of the spindles. You can set up a vertical drilling jig on your drill press or just drill them freehand. Glue all the spindles into the bottom stretcher, then add the top stretcher. For a complex assembly with lots of joints like this, I use hide glue because it has a long open time. Lay the assembled side on your workbench and set the armrest in place. Copy the angle from the backrest joint area onto the end of the armrest using a sliding T-bevel. Cut the angle with a miter saw. You've already cut their basic shape. Now the fun sculpting begins. The armrests taper in thickness from back to front. I used a bandsaw to cut this taper. If you don't have one, you can cut the taper with a handsaw or just belt sand it down. Don't shape the backrest or armrest joint areas yet. With the armrest set in place, trace the front armrest support on the underside of the armrest so you know to stay away from that area when you're shaping. Now you can simply smooth the tapered armrest, round over the edges and call it good, or you can scoop the top like I did and give the underside a more gradual round over. You can scoop the top using a flap disc sanding wheel on a grinder. Dry assemble the chair without dowels using pipe clamps to hold everything together, and then mark where each component goes. Mark and drill dowel holes in the seat frame and stretchers. With the chair disassembled, set the drilled parts in place on the chair sides and mark the dowel locations using dowel centers. Drill the dowel holes in the chair frame. Apply glue to the dowels and the joint surfaces and attach the back and seat frame to one side. Glue the dowels into the other ends of the seat frame and stretchers and press the second side onto the dowels. Again, here use hide glue to give yourself extra time. Use pipe clamps to press the joints fully home. The back joint is just a standard dowel joint. Drill the backrest first using a doweling jig and then mark the armrest with a dowel center. Put a dowel in the backrest hole, hold the armrest in position, and trace the dowel's angle on the edge of the armrest. That'll give you a reference for drilling that hole freehand. I used one 3/8 inch dowel at each joint. Glue the dowel and joint surfaces as well as the front joint surface. Press the joints together using packing tape to hold the front of the armrest in place and let the glue dry. Shape and refine all the joint transition areas. Use everything at your disposal: flap disc sander, belt sander, rasps, files, sanding blocks. Once the shaping passes the eye test, sand the whole chair and apply a finish of your choice. I sanded up to 800 grit and used 5 coats of General Finishes gel top coat. It's easy to apply and you don't have to worry about drips or sags. It doesn't build up as quickly, so you need to apply more coats than you would with a brushed on finish. Cut 3 strips of webbing to go front to back on the seat and 3 strips to go side to side. To find the right distance, measure between the slots and add 13/16 of an inch. Squeeze the webbing clips onto the ends of all the webbing strips. You can do this in a vise or use a vice grips or similar pliers. Starting about 2 inches from the side frame, insert the clip for the first strip into the back seat frame member's groove and then into the front frame groove. Continue across the whole seat, evenly spacing the 3 webbing strips. Next, add the webbing across the seat, weaving in between the front to back webbing. Now just add the cushions and have a seat. All right, so our chair is all done. I think it looks pretty nice. Again, this is more of an advanced woodworking project. I learned a lot along the way, and I think it'd be a really rewarding project for anyone with the skills to tackle. I'm very happy with how it turned out. For more cool projects like this, visit us at familyhandyman.com.